Bikes. They're finally coming to City Skylines 2. The most highly requested feature after the editor will be dropping as a free content update the day after this video goes live. So you're going to see these bikes and electric scooters hit the streets of your city very soon. This update will see you receive a number of new service building assets, some outstanding public transport buildings, new parks, and a load of new Old Town assets as well. On top of all that, there's a long list of bug fixes. There's tweaks to the levelling resources delivery system that relates to the trucks delivering resources to buildings, and fixes for all those pedestrian shoppers that are clogging your city, amongst others. But we're not here for that. We're here for the bikes. What I want to do in this video, as well as show you everything bike related, is to run a bit of an experiment. I want to know if bikes will actually make a tangible difference to the overall road traffic. In my Netherlands-inspired build, I foresee some real traffic issues as the city grows. The centre of the city is going to see significantly more traffic. However, I do plan on making bikes an integral part of that city as it gets bigger. But will all that extra work and planning, building a bike network, actually be worth it? And that's what I want to find out today. Before we start, the bikes coming today of course were a big surprise, but not as big as a surprise as the announcement that Lorno are ending development on City Skylines 2, with development being handed over to Iceflake Studios, who appear to be an internal studio of Paradox Interactive. To be honest, I'm still in a bit of shock, but I honestly don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for the game in the longer term. But I do want to thank Lorno for all the work with both City Skylines 1 and 2. Those games have given me thousands of hours of enjoyment, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they get up to next. Also, not insignificantly, we're also getting a beta version of the editor before the end of the year. That alone would be major use, but it's kind of almost been overshadowed by the organisational change. Anyway, lots of big changes happening, lots of content coming, the Netherlands pack, bridges and ports, bikes, new creator packs on the horizon, and of course now the editor. I think we're certainly in a much better place than we were last year, and let's hope that the studio changes are a positive step for the game. Time will tell, I guess. But let's get back to the bikes. Let's have a look first at the actual bike lanes and get an idea for how they work. So we can use the road upgrade tool and we can just simply add them. You can have them either on one side of the road if that's what you're after, or you can use the other tool and apply them on both sides of the road at the same time. You can see that you can still add trees, for example, so that's not a problem, but if you use the wide pavement, that's not going to support both at the same time. If we jump into the bus menu, we'll have a little look and see what happens when we apply a bus lane. And as you can see, there's no problems having bus lanes and bike lanes on the same path, or the same road rather. Let's have a quick look how that intersects. So let's just get a big road and we'll run it through all three. You'll notice the white dashed lines there where they intersect. And let's just add the rest of the bike lanes, and you'll see that the lanes will run right the way through the intersection. And that's basically it for the road upgrade tool. So two to choose from, pretty straightforward, just apply them on the road as you would normally do an upgrade. There's also a no bicycle sign, so if you want to prevent bikes from going on the road, you can apply on that as well, and it will put a little decal on the road just to make it clear it's a restricted lane. So we've looked at the road upgrades, now let's have a look at the specific bike infrastructure. So we're going to just jump in, and where you would normally find your path, so there is a new icon, little bike icon there. Now these come in a few different flavours. You've got the really narrow one, that's a one-way street, or one-way bike path rather, as you can see, and that will just run straight over road networks, pretty straightforward. You've also got a slim one, which is a two-way, and then this one here, which is a hybrid one. It's both pedestrian and also cyclists at the same time, and that's a full 1 unit width. The elevated options seem to be a rework of the vanilla pedestrian paths, so you've got 3 bridges here to choose from, and that is pretty much it for the networks. So in this old vanilla save, we can see that we have traffic issues. The traffic isn't here constantly, but it is pretty regular and it's fairly consistent. Due to the design of this city, we've got a big downtown island over here, and there's pretty much 2 ways in and 2 ways out, and there's elevated highways on both sides of the island. Not much in the way of public transport really, there are trains, but that's about it. I think the entire city has got 1 bus lane, and there's no trams as far as I can remember either. So it has its challenges, and I reckon it's a pretty good city to run this experiment. We're going to be able to apply the bikes, and I really want to compare just how this looks compared to the end of the video when we have a full bike network. There are a few info screens that will give us some data in terms of traffic flow and all that kind of stuff, so we'll be checking in at that at each stage of the build. So we're going to be able to have a look at just to see how the bikes are going on. If we click on the traffic one, we've got that traffic flow graph, and that never really changes, so I'm not expecting big things there. But we do have traffic volume, which might be looking a little bit different, so potentially we can maybe glean a little bit of information from that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the downtown and just give it a healthy dose of bike lanes pretty much absolutely everywhere through all these main streets. This is pretty much where most of the traffic is, and I definitely want to be adding plenty of lanes and plenty of options for people to get around. Across the river, the other side of the downtown, I've seen that we have some pedestrian networks, and where I see these in the city, I'm just going to rip them out and convert them, and we'll get them into bike networks instead. Where it makes sense, when I see something obvious that should be connected, I'm just going to expand the network and we'll just connect up and give a few shortcuts within the city. There's a major pedestrian network here which connects really one of our suburbs to our city centre, so that is all going to get replaced as well. I can imagine this will get quite a bit used later on. Again, I think we've got scope for a little shortcut here. Let's just tunnel through this hill, and I want to connect it right over here. That will take us to the train station, and that will give us a nice little sort of commuter shortcut. I'm not too bothered about how it looks just now. I really just want the bikes in, and I'm not really necessarily going to make it particularly pretty. Over in one of our suburbs, we've got scope for plenty of roads to be converted. Now, when we do convert these over, it does take away car parking, so I don't want to get rid of car parking altogether. So if I think things are going to get a little bit pushed, then I will just add a little extra parking for cars if necessary. If any of you guys have been following the channel from the start, you might recognise that big interchange. That is the starter interchange that I built about 2 years ago. I ended up, in fact, using that as a starter interchange for a city, and I kind of built this city around it. So yeah, go check that video. It's an old one, but it's pretty cool. And again, I'm just going to go and extend the network, and I think it makes sense to have that big arterial. We'll take the traffic off that road, and we will just funnel it into that little new tunnel that we built. At this point, our Sims don't have any way to actually cycle onto our downtown island, so I'm going to convert this path network. I decided to use the hybrid one that has pedestrian and bicycle lanes on it, and obviously it's getting plenty of use with pedestrians, and it'll be nice to see just exactly how we are going to get on with the bikes. Now, one thing to note, I've not used any bike parking. I deliberately wanted this section to just be bike networks only, and get an idea of exactly how many of them are going to be using it. So with that in mind, I've let the game run on a little bit, and we can see that it's fairly light use. We do have a few more things to do, that is to provide parking. That's going to basically make up the next section, and we can compare how we are to this base level, if you like. And then we also have the district tool that can encourage or dissuade bike usage as well. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, which steps have the biggest impact in overall bike usage. So I've gone ahead and continued to expand out the network just pretty much all over the city, and we're going to come back into the road tools, and we're going to jump into the parking menu. The parking menu is going to give you, I think, 9 new options for bike parking. You can place them down individually, one space at a time, or you can go right the way up to having over 400 spaces, for example, in the underground parking. And we've got quite a lot of other options that are in between. So here you've got the individual spaces and the bike shelters, and straight away, pretty much as soon as we've put them down, they're going to get good use. I have to say, I do appreciate the animations, not just on the bikes, but even just the bike parking as well. It is appreciated, and it's a nice touch, I think, from Lorno. This one we're going to have a look at now is going to take a single square, but obviously you can just chain them together. And I have to say, this is, although it's a simple one, it's maybe one that's going to see quite a lot of usage in my city, I reckon. And again, as soon as we plop it down, it gets usage straight away. Before not too long, it's pretty much full. Let's have a quick look at some of the other options. I have to admit, I do quite like being able to see the bikes rather than them being enclosed or on the ground. But I do reckon that we're going to be able to combine these with other assets and create some really nice neighbourhoods actually. One nice feature that you'll find in this patch is that a lot of the assets that have bike parking included will now be functional. And here you can see we've got the Dutch train station laid out here just on a little test map, and we have plenty of people coming to park in here. But this is just one example. You'll find that in the commercial assets, for example, that came with the bikes and the Bridges and Ports DLC, they've got parking in there. People will come, they'll park directly into the shop asset, which is pretty cool. So depending on the road that you have, there is a few different options in terms of how to snap these parking assets on. Using the medium and the wide roads is pretty good, so it's kind of obvious place for parking, I guess, but you can actually snap them onto the smaller roads as well. I don't know if you'd necessarily want them, but it does work. I think that example on the pedestrian one works pretty nicely as well, and again, you can go wild and put as many as you want. Now, one thing that you might notice when you place these down initially is that they do get an awful lot of traffic, and they can cause a little bit of traffic in their own right actually as well, but I think that is a small price to pay to see these things filling up. Quick note, where you've got bus stops, you will see that that lane will disappear and the bikes will just go onto the normal road. Be nice to see them coming into the actual bus stop itself, but it's not a big deal, I guess, is it? So while I'm letting the simulation run a bit, I extended the bike network a little bit further out. I had some neighbourhoods that are out towards the edge of the map. I've also got a really big industrial area that's kind of almost standalone. It's a fair bit of a distance, and I really wanted to give our Sims options to travel anywhere in the city and really encourage the usage of the bike. So this network was definitely going to help. So we are getting some usage here over an industrial area. You can kind of see how far away the downtown is from here, in fact, and yeah, it's nice to see them getting a bit of action, although I would maybe expect a little bit more, given that this is probably a place for more workspaces. That said, it's not really a central location for the bike parking, so we'll keep an eye on that and see how we get on. Now remember, we were going to use that bridge that we converted as a bit of a yardstick in terms of how much bike traffic that we might expect going from one place to the other. Let's have a look and see how we're getting on now. And it is super busy. As soon as I started putting down the parking, the bike usage soared essentially. So more parking that you provide, the more likeliness that your Sims are going to be jumping on a bike and actually using the thing. But one thing that is abundant and clear is that if you are going to really push for the bikes and put plenty of parking down, you're going to have to make sure that you have the infrastructure to support it. This is an extreme example, having one single bridge going from downtown to the rest of the city, but it's a pretty good example because it just makes it really crystal clear that you can't just chuck a network up and hope for the best. You're gonna have a little bit of planning to do on this to make it successful. Having one bridge to serve downtown is the equivalent of just having a single road and expecting all your traffic to be fine. So yeah, keep that in mind guys, it can get super busy if you're going to give them lots of bike parking. Yeah, of course there can be other creative solutions, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. So I wanted to swing back and have a little look at those info panels and see if there's anything interesting there. Traffic flow looks like it is basically exactly the same, so that info panel isn't really all that helpful. The actual traffic flow itself, not too sure how that compares to from the beginning of the video. Let's do a quick before and after. Yeah, nothing really too much there to write home about, hard to tell, isn't it? But one thing that is useful is the bicycles info screen, and we can have a pretty good look at exactly where everybody's going, and this was more useful just for pointing out really any gaps that you have in your bike network. It will pretty much apparently be shown here pretty easily. The final thing to try here was to try the district tool, and what we can do here is we can essentially just pick the rest of the districts. I want to cover the whole city and try this in fact, but we have a city ordinance, and the city ordinance that we're going to be switching on essentially is called Urban Cycling Initiative. This will encourage more cycling within that particular district, and I think just by chucking it on the city, it should give our Sims a little bit more likeliness to actually choose bikes instead of spawning a car. Now to try and alleviate some of the traffic queues, I ended up putting in an extra bridge, and that's getting its own queues as well. And over here, I would have preferred to do a direct comparison, but at the end of the day, you can't really compare one bike traffic jam against another bike traffic jam. It wasn't really very useful. One thing I can say, however, though, is based on this city and the little sort of mess about I had with a test city before I started recording this video, is that at least anecdotally the amount of bike traffic did increase each time I applied that ordinance. I'm a bit annoyed with myself that I didn't have a decent direct comparison. I thought that bridge was going to do the job, but yeah, it definitely does seem to boost it even further. Another thing I noticed when I was experimenting with the networks is that the bikers will very much prefer having dedicated bike routes. Here you can see we've got road upgrades on both sides of our dual carriageway here, and almost everybody is choosing to use the dedicated bike network in the middle. I'll show you a little bit later on in the video that is also the case when you have the network that is shared with pedestrians and cyclists, is that the cyclists will take the route where it's bikes only. So I thought that was quite interesting, and it's definitely something that you want to keep in mind when you're laying out your networks. Another really important thing to think about is where your bike network terminates. Here you can see that we've got this in a suboptimal place, and it's bad enough that things are going to start despawning. Here we can take a bit of a closer look at the issue. Now traffic isn't particularly busy here, but we have a really busy cycle lane just terminating into a relatively busy pathway. So there's probably not much more you can do here other than provide additional routes for people to get on and off the network. Now I just want to be clear while I'm starting this section that I'm not suggesting that you go out and build a dedicated cloverleaf interchange for your cyclists. Do it. But what I want to do here is to just kind of demonstrate the difference it can make by having thoughtfully placed networks rather than just sticking them into any old road. The difference can be vast, and there's a couple of little things that you can do to make things flow just that little bit better. So obviously having this interchange in place means that we've got various networks and various exits to different networks within the same area. So again, just giving your sims more choice. Have a look at the traffic that's building up on the bridge here, and you can see the difference that it's going to be flowing just fine on this side, but over on the other side where we've just planked it straight into a busy road, things are going to be quite a bit different. And remember what I was saying earlier, the bikes do prefer dedicated bike paths, nobody's using the one up top. So one little thing you can do here is just get rid of these traffic lights, and then you can see that things are going to be flowing pretty well onto this road. If this was a busy road, things could be quite a bit different. So when all of this is said and done, what have we learned today? Well, we know that the infrastructure will run better with proper planning and sufficient bike routes, and too few, the network will struggle and it will start queuing. For a busy network, how you connect that network actually does matter. If you terminate the bike lanes into a busy road junction with the traffic lights, for example, we might have problems. And I would suggest that you do consider maybe using a quieter section of road, or maybe a pedestrian road could work well. I didn't actually test that. Bike parking matters. The amount of bike parking you provide seems to correlate with the amount of bike traffic that you're going to have in the city. You might not want to have Amsterdam levels of biking in your city, so if that's the case, go a bit easier with the parking and don't use the biking district tool to encourage bike usage either. The other thing I would say is try not to duplicate bike networks, dedicated bike networks. Sims will almost always use the dedicated bike lanes anyway, and you're just wasting your time, and that includes hybrid pedestrian bike lanes as well. But more than anything else, the big question was, can you use the new bike functionality to actually reduce the overall traffic in your city? What you're looking at here is the city that's been run on for quite a bit of time. As I said at the beginning, I have quite a bit of traffic coming in and out of the downtown island. It will come and go a little bit, but it is fairly consistent and it will start backing up quite a bit after a short period of time. I let this run for a good hour on maximum speed and I didn't really get any major tailbacks, and I reckon that's going to bode really well for my Netherlands themed build that I know is going to have traffic issues later on. So there we have it. Everything I could figure out about bikes and bike networks as things currently stand. If you've enjoyed the video, do go check out that Netherlands inspired series. It will be seeing a ton of bikes in the future. So here's episode 1 for you. Thanks for watching, take care, I'll see you in the next one.